Hello, and welcome to Release Day, the podcast series that dives into the stories and strategies of how Canada's music community are releasing their art to the world. I'm your host, Alex Huard. On this week's podcast, I speak with Newfoundland Country artist Justin Fancy about his debut album, Sure Beats a Good Time. When listening to this album, it's hard to believe it was recorded anywhere but Nashville. Fancy was originally due to record Sure Beats a Good Time at Seven View Studios in Springdale, with fellow Newfoundlander Clint Curtis, a veteran musician in his own right who is quickly developing a reputation for delivering world-class, Nashville-quality production values right on the rock. But when the coronavirus pandemic hit and the majority of the population went into self-isolation, they had to come up with a plan B. But before we get into the episode, we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Land acknowledgements mark a small and important step in the process of reconciliation and building a positive relationship with our country's Indigenous peoples. Be sure to stick around after the interview, as Graham and I highlight some music industry news and share the artists we've had in rotation for the past week. Never one to concede defeat, Fancy ended up cutting his tracks for the album remotely. While 700 kilometers away, Curtis put the finishing touches on each of the record's 7 songs. This is a story of adaptation and perseverance at its best. All right, well, joining me on another episode of the Release Day series podcast is Newfoundlander Justin Fancy. Justin, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
How you been through everything?
Good. It's been great, actually. Well, I guess, pandemics never go great, but
all things considered.
Yeah, I seem to have I guess, a lot of adaptation went on, releasing a record and all that good stuff. 3 songs out, 3 singles, 3 music videos. So it's been a busy year for me. And I was able to release all of that, pretty much remotely and online. So I'm just, I'm real happy for that, for sure.
Man, congratulations on the album. The debut album Sure Beats a Good Time. It sounds fantastic. I've been listening to your podcast. I want to talk about that a little bit later.
Awesome.
And you guys, honestly, like if you're listening to this now, you could probably just shut it off and just go listen to that, because you'll hear everything you need to about Justin in episode 1 of that podcast. But it just sounds great. And your friend Steven there, he says it. It sounds like it's something recorded in Nashville, and just the quality of it. So congratulations. I mean, how's it feel? How's it been received by everybody?
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was, as I said, it was a little bit of a tangle at first, because I had planned on traveling about 500 kilometers outside of St. John's to record this record. And I'll take it back even a little bit further than that. My producer that I met, Clint Curtis, I'd actually never shaken his hand before. We did all of this remotely, and we did everything remotely, and that was because of the pandemic. I was supposed to travel to Springdale, like I said, and that didn't end up panning out. And he said, "What the hell? We'll give it a go." And send me a track of you just playing the guitar and singing the songs. And he said, "I'll see what I can come up with." So that was after the first song was so successful, and I was amazed at the production myself when I had heard it. I've been years saying that I'd kind of need to go to Nashville or somewhere on the mainland in Alberta or something, in a studio to get the kind of sound that I wanted. But I was extremely pleased with the first song, and then we just made a record. And I had never met the man before personally, right?
So that was all done back and forth, just over you recording, sending it to him. That whole album was created this way?
Absolutely was, yeah. Wow. So I recorded my vocals and a bit of guitar in a studio here in town. A friend of mine has another spot called the Sound Solution, and we recorded the vocals there. And basically everything else was done with, his talents and in his studio. I mean, he's a monster musician, monster guitar player, and he can play anything. He played banjo. He played, another couple of instruments on the album. It was absolutely It was astonishing to me what he was able to come up with. I mean, and we worked back and forth together. I mean, he sent back a mix, and I'd say I'd want this changed or this added or something. We kind of co-produced it back and forth, but it didn't surprise me. I'm a tech guy myself. I'm a tech guy by trade, and that's what I do for a living. So I knew it wasn't impossible. I just didn't think I was going to find, the right person, someone like Clint, to come along and produce something so good sounding. I mean, it was surprising to me.
Well, man, that's such a heart and soul into this thing, right? I mean, and to do it that way, I mean, there's more than just thinking about, hey, like, is it going to be recorded well enough? But it's, you're pouring your heart, your soul, your money into doing this, that, recording it this way is not really an ideal situation. I think you would go to right away, and maybe in general, but there's a lot riding on it.
Yeah, no doubt. And because the first song was good, I didn't know if the second song was, like, the first song blew me right out of the water. A long time coming. That came out in January. So I wasn't really sure. I was like, this guy can't do 10 of these in a row and, like, completely 100% satisfy me every single time, because I like being in the studio. I like getting in there and, like, hashing it out with my producer, sitting next to him and kind of mixing it next to him. And that's always the kind of guy that I've been. I wanted hands on to it. And he just kept spitting out these songs, and sounds and beats and stuff, like, and the other challenge is modernizing what I had written, the songs that I had written. I'm a classic country kind of guy. Even like 90s country kind of guy. I listen to a lot of, Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn. I go back to, like, the Merle Haggars and George Jones. I listen to all that raw country. So obviously, my lyrics and my style reflect some of that. We found a way to modernize those songs to make them fit on commercial radio.
Absolutely, you did. Yeah, no, and that was the kind of thing you hear about those being your influences, the originators of country music, but it is really well produced modern country record, and I'm sure that you could and will at some point go back and kind of record something that is maybe closer to what those older guys, the originators, were doing. But man, what a great way to kick off, I guess, I don't want to say your career. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, but I mean, as a debut album.
Now.
Exactly.
It's official now. I mean, for years I've been gigging and playing cover songs in bars and all that kind of jazz. And I had my Canadian Idol stint in 2008 that, that really, I thought it was the beginning then. And it really was. It was the beginning for me, but I just didn't know how to approach it. So, of course, you listen to the podcast and listen to the things that we say on, and what I've learned over the years when it comes to this business. I mean, there's one side, there's a live entertainment side of the business, and there's also the business of selling your records and selling your CDs and getting on country radio and everything else. So I sat back for a lot of years and just pretty much did a lot of research on what I needed to do. When I was confident enough to release the songs that I had written, I just needed the producer, just needed the person that was going to set my songs over the top to be able to compete with commercial radio.
Well, people need to do that more often. It's so easy to go and record something and put it out there now that you don't think about. I feel like there is this mentality of, I should just be able to do this, put it out there and be heard and be seen. And 1 in a billion, maybe that could happen too. But I think what you did there is what so many artists need to consider doing is, or once they get started, really have an understanding of, look, this is going to take some time, and this is going to take some research. This is going to take, either building a team around me, or understanding the million of jobs that I'm going to have to do for a long time in order to be effective and make my music heard. So I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, and no doubt. And I mean, and I got to thank the team around me as well. I mean, Paula with Hype Music, she's been phenomenal since the start. She's taught me a lot of lessons in a very short amount of time. I did have a plan, and I knew what I had to do with the first couple of songs, but, releasing an album and getting that out there and kind of, it's all about the timing, and it's all about planning the timing and planning the hype. So once you get to a certain point where you have enough followers to gain that hype and get that hype going, that's when you really start building towards your album release towards the big release, the big day. And that's, I see it every single day. I see artists struggle with it every single day. They go in and spend 10 or 20,000 on an album and they put it out the next day and it's just out and it's not being promoted. It might be the best music in the world. But if it's not promoted and it's not marketed right, it's literally, and especially in this pandemic and the state we're in now, there's nobody, I can't travel and I can't tour now. So I'm making the best of it online as much as I can. I'm talking to music directors across the country. And that's what we need to do. And I mean, it's a blessing in disguise for me in some sort of way. I think about it because I've gotten introduced to music directors that would normally want to meet and greet personally. So I would have to travel to the radio station and have a chat with those people. I'm able to do that now and create that connection right from my basement. Just the same thing as I'm doing with you right now. Right. So
absolutely,
there's some benefits for sure.
You're doing all that sort of on your own, or doing that through your publicist? Like how are you being able to take on some of those opportunities to connect?
Yeah. So first thing is a radio tracker. If you feel like you have a strong enough song and the people around you I had some contacts in the beginning there that had to listen to this music and they, obviously they liked what they heard. So, it was a question of whether I was going to invest in this now, or was it something that was just going to be a personal project and it was going to go out. So I chose the investment piece of that. And there's some return in investment coming back from that. But there's still an upfront investment. I got some funding and stuff too, which was very, very great. And I think I'm going to need funding going forward to keep propelling what I'm doing. Right. So that's another avenue that you need to go down and you need to avail of when possible. But yeah, Paula, Denilevich at Hype Music, she's been phenomenal. She's gotten me on, several, TV morning shows and like Global. And I was on CTV the other day.
Oh, amazing.
She has a ton of contacts when it comes to that. So you let those people do that work. If I were to give advice to somebody up and coming, releasing your first song, it doesn't hurt to contact the radio people, the music directors yourself, but it looks a lot better coming from your publicist or PR or radio tracker that actually has already listened to your song. So I have a radio tracker right now that, he's known right across the country. So they know the radio people know if this guy is presenting them Justin's music, they know it's got to be decent right off the hop. So they put on their headphones and listen. If you're an indie artist they've never heard from before, chances are they're probably not going to respond to that email.
It is important to make that distinction with somebody that they like a publicist, is understanding their connections is what you're hiring them for, because when their name pops up in that radio tracker's mailbox, their name is the reason why they're opening that email.
Absolutely. It's all about creating relationships and contacts. And when there's people in the industry that have that ability already and can do it for you, it's worth the investment. It is so worth the investment, especially if you've got a hot song that, people believe in. And I'm not saying family and friends, but if you've got a hot song you want to ship across the country, you have to know that, this investment, because it's not cheap for a radio tracker. It's not cheap for publicity. But you have to have knowledge from somebody that can tell you, yeah, I think this is worth the crack. Because, at the end of the day, and I keep saying this, and I listened to a podcast with Jim Cressman and Shiloh Bellis the other day. Shiloh is a music director in New Brunswick, and Jim owns a management and a live entertainment company in BC. So he's managing massive concerts right across the country, and Shiloh said if in country radio, there's very limited slots for indie artists. Obviously, American country is big on Canadian radio, and there's always so much Canadian content we can put on there as well, which is a little bit sad. I think we need more of that. We need more Canadian content on our radio stations, because we can compete with American radio now when it comes to quality and production. Not so much the popularity side of things, because American country is a lot bigger than what Canadian country is. But, Shiloh goes back and he says, if your song doesn't sound like it fits between a Keith Urban song and someone like a Morgan Wallen song, if your song doesn't fit right in the middle of that, then, you got to go back to the drawing board. Production-wise and quality-wise, if it doesn't sit there in that same place, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
You know, a lot of people, I think a lot of artists too kind of shy away from that word mainstream, but I mean, that's really what it needs to be. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, you make it your own, and ultimately it has to be what you want to write and sing about. But if you're not writing something that is considered mainstream, then it's not going to have that opportunity, you know? I mean,
absolutely, man.
First and foremost, do and write what you love, but you got to be realistic in what your expectation is for the song and for the music. If you know, that is what you're trying to do, get on radio, be worldwide. It's got to be that word, mainstream. Yeah. So take me back a little bit further. So when do you start thinking about all of this? When do you start planning for the reaching out to the radio, for, you know, the billboard ads, for the release parties? When is all of that being considered? At what point?
That's that, you know, it's probably about a year in the, I'm recording a song now that I'm going to release next year. So I like to be ahead of that. And I've always been a kind of organized guy. OCD, we'll call it. But yeah, no, it's well in advance. And myself and Paul have worked very well when it comes to that side of things and planning the events and what transpires. To be honest with you, I was going in studio to record one song in January, and it was a long time coming. And I ended up, going back and saying, I'm going to do a record and we're going to release it this summer. And it got delayed until I think it was the end of September. But I mean, you know, what we had to work with and the whole pandemic and everything else. And, it just all came together great. And when you plan, you need to be, 5-6 steps ahead. It's no different to being on a pool table. If you're a good pool player, you think 5 shots ahead. You think, where's that 8 ball going in that pocket? Yeah. At the end of the day, right? I mean, it's the same concept. If you release a single and it doesn't go anywhere, then you need a backup plan. Then you need maybe a month or 2 months later, you got to come back cracking again. I've had 3 successful singles, for an indie artist. I'll say I cracked the top 100 on 3 of songs. And, I was quite satisfied with that, being an indie artist and whatever else. But, we're ready to crack again now in the new year. We have something planned for February, another single off the record. And I've got to go back now, and I've got a plan for a music video in January. So it's never ending. You just can't smother people with multiple things when you can use them as tools throughout the year. Like I've got 2 more singles planned for next year. And who knows after that. We're still in the planning process for that, but we want to see what Sure Beats a Good Time does now. That's gone right across the country, and it's starting to pick up a little bit of momentum. So it's all about, when that thing starts to dive, then you need to come back and have something reputable enough and on the same level as that to be able to counteract that drop. And then you start seeing the rise again, right?
Is there any pressure there on you? Like, there's always something about you writing what you want, but I mean, there's got to be a little bit of pressure to know that what you're coming out with next is good, if not better.
There is. And there's planning that goes in that, because what you do is you try the songs that you think are warranted for radio, but might not be as strong as your strongest ones at the end of the day. So you want to keep building on what you have. So that's extremely hard to do, because you want to put out the best song right away. Yeah, that's what you want to do. So again, you go back to listening to the people that are listening to this music, that are experts in the industry and know the music and know what what radio is going to want to hear. There's a lot of pressure on that. There's always going to be pressure. I think it's healthy pressure, and I think it makes you a better songwriter and a better singer at the end of the day. I've written hundreds of songs over the years, and I can tell you right now, there's 7 songs on that record plus 2 bonus tracks. 3 of those songs were written over the pandemic. Yeah. So I had a number of songs, but I wrote my best material over the pandemic. I can't tell you why. I think it was mostly motivation, because I knew I had the right sound. I knew I had the right production, and I knew this was the time I was just in the mode musically. I can't explain it. Like I was writing songs every other day, because I felt like I had the production and had what I needed around me to be able to portray the songs the way I wanted to do it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of these times that really kind of bring out the most out of artists, and a lot of out of the creatives is kind of, as tough as it is, and, people who kind of rely on gigging to do this. I was just speaking with another artist. His name's Jay Bocott of this band Rooks out of Calgary. And he said that, right now a lot of artists are getting really good. It's tough for sure, but there's a lot of people that are sitting back and they're taking a lot of this time to just get better. And,
No doubt.
I'm, to hear that that's sort of the element that the writing element and producing element that sort of came out of this during the pandemic. Again, it's sort of the product of the environment you're in and the mentality that you kind of put yourself in, and hope that it's positive.
No doubt about it.
Now, accompanying the music, obviously, is some videos which you have you were able to put out, and one of the big one was Think About You, and that was with Samantha Pico from Big Brother 7. How is that relationship work out? And I guess that's something one of those contacts again. You're kind of like, hey, let's work together, take advantage of the connection here.
Yeah, for sure. She's a friend of mine. I grew up with her in CBS, and she's. I say this to everybody. Everybody asks the same question. I think she's a star, and I think she's very, very, very warranted to be in any music video I've ever been a part of.
Just real quick. CBS being Conception Bay, South Newfoundland.
Correct.
Sorry, anybody else from Newfoundland. There you go.
Yeah, no worries. That's about 15 minutes outside of St. John's, if you're wondering. But she was a gem, and I had asked her very informally because she's just a friend of mine. We were having a few beers one night, and I just said, you want to be part of a music video? Come on, let's do it. And she was all over it from day one. She helped choreograph it. She helped she was really, really involved. We had a great team behind us to do it. And it just all worked out. I think she was the perfect image for a couple of videos now. And we're going to have her back, I think, for the next one. And I think that story's kind of going to die then. No, she's been unbelievable. And, I've known her for a number of years. And to be honest with you, I didn't really follow the Big Brother thing. She'll kill me for this, but I just wasn't a Big Brother kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
But I knew she was very influential in the social media world and everything else. It was a good opportunity for the both of us to keep that train going, because I know, she's got her own thing going on as well, being a public figure and a face and everything else. And it was just a really good opportunity for us both. And we're going to continue it with the next one for sure.
It seems like having drinks and coming up with ideas is pretty common because even going back to, just how you kind of got started, it blows me away to know the first stage you stepped on was for Canadian Idol. I mean, and that came up because you were having drinks and somebody dared you to try out for it.
Yeah.
And, how does that end up being the first stage that you're on?
So I was playing at, shed parties and campfires and house parties and all that kind of stuff for a number of years. And I started that when I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I always had a knack for entertaining, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. So we're at a shed party one night, and actually it was a couple of houses up from my place. We were having a few drinks, and we had a few moose sausages on. I'll remember it till the day I die. And it was like 2 a.m. and it comes on the radio, Canadian Idol tryouts at 6 a.m. Be at the Avalon Mall. And I'm just finishing my drink. And the guy's like, we'll give you $50 a piece. There was 8 of them there. We'll give you $50 a piece, and we'll pay for your cab out. Take your guitar out and try it for Canadian Idol. And
this was the next day after the party?
Well, I left the party at like 4 a.m. and I went and lined up at the Avalon Mall.
You probably just did that, didn't you? Yeah,
I did. Absolutely did. Yeah, absolutely did. And I ended up in, and next thing I know, I get a gold ticket to go to Toronto, and I'm in the top 200 of Canadian Idol that year. I learned so much, with the business side of things, doing something like that, and I'll never ever take that for granted. And I came back home, and I really didn't know. I didn't have the mentorship or the people around me that I do now, and that I know now that I've met over the years to kind of take it in a different direction, other than I just wanted to play music. So wherever that was going to be, and I found my niche on George Street. it's a good place to find a niche, because there's, 20 or 30 pubs looking at you every night of the week, 7 days a week. There's live entertainment. So, I mean, I pretty much made a living for 3 or 4 years after Canadian Idol, and obviously went back to school and got an education and everything. And I had a little girl in the process and all that kind of stuff. So, I just had to keep up with life at that point, and I kind of put it on pause. I still played a few gigs and that, but I got a lot of inspiration in the last year or so to write. I had a bad breakup and that kind of stuff, so I wrote a lot of music, and it was just felt like it was my time to release a record. And then the pandemic comes, and I'm just like, oh my God, okay, what am I doing now? What's going to happen now? I got to put it all on pause, right? But then, I just decided that I was just going to do it. And Clint, my producer, again, he convinced me we could do it all remotely, and I trusted him, and he certainly delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and those songs feel really personal, man. And I and I know you say it in your memory, that's really, what you're going to write about, what you want to write about. And, is that really just a common string, just true to life stories through your writing and through this album?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And I think your memory came about, I can't remember now. I heard a song on the radio. I can't recall what it is. And it wasn't at all a diss towards the song. It was just something that I was never, ever going to write about. Like a dirt road or a truck or a county line or, and so it just popped in my head, and I wrote it in like 5 minutes, Alex. Wow. I'm not, it just spit right out of me. And then, so what I did then, I was doing a lot of Facebook Live shows at the time, and I went online, I went on Facebook, and I said, you know what? I just wrote a song, you guys name it. And that's what they came up with, Your Memory. So.
Yeah, man, beautiful song, and I absolutely love that one.
Clint kind of put like an '80s touch on it. I don't know if you hear put the synth and stuff in that song, and the steel guitar complementing the synth there. It's like an '80s song. So Clint is a raw '80s kind of rock kind of guy. So what he's been astonished at is that he thinks that the '80s sound has kind of come back into modern country. So he's he's an '80s rocker, right? So he's a Bon Jovi kind of guy. Yeah. Bryan Adams, that kind of stuff, right? And he hears like the '80s pop and rock in the modern country, and I hear it now after listening to it a bit and whatever else. But he was truly astonished by that, and I think that motivated him a little bit as well.
Yeah, man. No, there's something definitely familiar about the album. It feels like it's yours, but it also feels like you connect with it. It doesn't feel disconnected from country music.
Exactly. That's what we wanted. It's definitely what we wanted. We wanted that unique side of it, but we also, there's a fine line between being unique and being able to compete on country radio. So you still need to sound similar, but you need to be unique at the same breath. Yeah. So that's kind of it's a difficult line to kind of stay on. But I'm just, for me, the music for me, so many people have reached out and can relate to the music, and what they're going through. And if I can help them with anything, if my songs help them and, help them relate to something that someone else is going through, then, that's what it's all about for me, for sure.
Is this along the lines of country music in Newfoundland, or is this something different for Newfoundlanders to hear? I mean, okay.
It is. Newfoundlanders love country. They love folk music. We love rock. We all avenues of music, but what stands out to me in Newfoundland is country for sure, and obviously Irish and folk music, which is our culture here. It's rare to see a mainstream country artist come out of Newfoundland. I mean, there's only a few of us around, right? We're really known for our culture and our folk side of music, and Irish traditional music more or less than mainstream country, right? Yeah. So it is something different and refreshing, and I do think a lot of people, respect that side of it for sure.
Now, you were lucky enough to have a release party for this album. I guess I'm also kind of interested in sort of what the restrictions are over in Newfoundland. Yeah. I guess things are a little bit lighter there, which is so nice. But
Yeah. We had a few cases floating around, but I mean, it's been nothing like the most cases we've had, I think at one time, active cases, I think were 30. So, you know, we didn't have a lot, but we still contained it. And we still, obviously, you know, we went through a lockdown here, and it was after the whole country was locked down. And, you know, we're kind of back up and running now, but, you know, there were strict restrictions at the time of the CD release. So basically what we did was have an invite only event that we would kind of bubble up, and the tables, you know, we were allowed a 75 person event. Normally that room could fit 400 people. And I wanted 400 people in that room like you would never believe. So we had 75 people. So at first I was like, oh, that's great. Okay, 75 people. But then you take the staff, then you take the musicians that are on the stage, you take the camera crew that was there, and the crew that came in from Corner Brook Steady Entertainment to come in and kind of do it all. And then I'm left with like 40 people. So it was strategic. I invited some media and some music organizations as well. So that worked out really well. And Sham Majundo joined us. He surprised me the day before that he was going to come up and host the thing. So that was amazing.
Yeah, that's great. He brought an energy to that live.
Absolutely
to that,
did, man.
video,
He absolutely did. Yeah. And it was so nice from his dog wasn't well at the time either. And he ended up being a little bit late. But he nailed it, man. That night was just so perfect in every way. And it was executed to a T as far as I'm concerned, the people that were involved. And I did a lot of that groundwork to kind of make that happen the way that I wanted it to. And just pulling off a show in the middle of a pandemic is a very difficult thing to do. There was points where I was extremely nervous and I didn't know how I was going to go.
Yeah.
But I just got up and did my thing, and it all worked out.
Yeah, again, man, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage and just in general to put these things on. You know, again, there's a lot going into them, and there's a lot riding on it. And you know, so again, congratulations to being able to pull these things off and stay doing it safely and really trying to make the most of, you know, an album release during a global pandemic. You know, I
really appreciate that, man. It's been a weird year, but a very, I'll say it's been a very successful year for me. And I just want to keep it going. We want to keep the hype going. And you know what, one of these days I might be able to tour the damn thing. I don't know, but hopefully that comes soon.
Well, people are going to want to hear it. They're going to want to hear these songs, you know, when you can get out there and when you can get, you know, across, you know, the country or across the world. You know, people are going to be lining up to get a taste of it. So, you know, don't stop playing them. And, you know, I guess you've been playing them for a long time. So
for sure.
Yeah, no, man. So I just want to finish just to talk real quickly again about, give you a chance to kind of plug that podcast you and Stephen Green are doing, because I think it's fantastic. I mean, you guys are there providing indie artists with, you know, your knowledge and know-how and giving them the best opportunity to succeed themselves. You know, I know this was Stephen's idea. Had you seen yourself sort of ever doing a podcast like this in the future? So
I kind of went to Stephen in the beginning when I started recording my, you know, when I got Long Time Coming Back, even the first mix, I went to Stephen right away. I respect Stephen and what he does. He's a fabulous musician, fabulous songwriter. And he's in a band right now called Fairgale that are getting some national attention. Actually, Paula's working with them as well. But I went to him in the beginning and we had several conversations that lasted hours on the phone about the music industry and how, you know, people should be educated about what we're doing. People should know what we're doing so that next time when someone else needs a plug or someone else needs something or know-how or know-to, you know, they've got something to go with. And, you know, we came up with this crazy idea about maybe one of these days we're going to make a podcast. So Music NL comes out with, which is our music work here in St. John's, comes out with this press on funding. And it was basically COVID funding, COVID specific funding for projects that enhanced, you know, East Coast artists, Newfoundland artists, and showcase them and help them or any kind of education, whatever else. So I called Stephen one night and I was like, man, do you want to do this? Because we can do it. We can definitely do it. We have enough to talk about for everybody. And Stephen kind of joked at it because he said, "You're really not going to let me down on this podcast, are you? You really want to do this podcast? You're persistent." Because I really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I wanted some purpose behind it because, not that I want musicians to be lazy and not be, but I just want to give them direction to go to the right places to find the right answers. And that was most important for me when I started, because I called and I did my research. I made some calls that probably didn't make sense, but I learned by that, and I'm still learning. I'm learning every single day. But what we had set out to do was introduce artists that are looking to release music into a world where you have a chance to be successful. When it comes to releasing a single, when it comes to releasing a music video, where do you pitch your music? How does it get on radio? Who do I contact for radio tracking, for publicity? Who did this? Who did that? So, and the other side of it is when my music started getting heard and the success was starting to kind of trickle over social media, a lot of musicians were asking me questions directly. They were asking me, friends that I've had for so many years doing the same thing that I've been doing, gigging down on George Street 7 days a week. They're wanting to know, like, how did you do this? How does it work? Like, who were you talking to? And, I had to learn that from the ground up. And like I said, the podcast is not for the lazy artist to go in there and just be like, okay, yeah, well, I got to do this, and then I'm going to be a rock star. The podcast is to set you in the right direction to make you successful, or at least have a go at being successful. The knowledge is very, very important in this industry, and the relationships are very, very important. And we absolutely love doing the podcast. I think it's something that kept us company during the pandemic, and we used to do 1 or 2 nights a week, and we interviewed some NL artists, featured their music, and actually paid them to feature their music on the podcast through the funding and stuff. So it was just a good news story, and I appreciate you bringing it up because it means a lot to us for sure.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. And I think it's just great. Again, like there's something so giving and communal, I think, about the music industry. I mean, as there, I think for years, and there's still some shady and bad characters out there, but so, the music industry, the entertainment industry kind of gets a bad rap, right? And sometimes it's warranted, but there's so many, like you doing this podcast, and there's some a guy out in California, his name's Ari Herstand, and he's got he's just written some books, and he's got a blog, and Rick Barker out in Nashville, and there's also so much good about in the music industry that a lot of people within it are really trying to help and lend a hand to the community. So I guess, just thank you for taking the opportunity to do that. Not that I'm a musician, but, on behalf of, it's like, it's just great to see that even through the pandemic, it's like, let's support each other here. Let's try, and now is an opportunity
Absolutely.
where we can teach people what we know and pass on the knowledge that we have. And hopefully this can better them and give them the tools and knowledge they need to move forward, man. So it's
absolutely. And the other side of it is you get asked all these questions by all these musicians because they see the success you're having. Yeah. And I wanted a kind of a one-stop shop to go and say, hey, listen, appreciate you reaching out, and don't get discouraged if artists that you want to mimic or want to be like or want to have the same successes they're having. Don't get discouraged if they don't respond to you, and a couple of days later they come back with something. Like, we're extremely busy people and doing our own thing, and to be honest, what really matters is you going and doing your own research, doing your own development, doing your own branding, and kind of honing in on what exactly it is you want to do. That's what music directors, that's what people across the country really want to see. They want to see that you've done your homework, and you don't just have a good song. You have a good following. You have a good kind of train coming behind you. That's going to push you to the next level, because that's what they want. They want the popularity ratings. They want to see that you've got a couple of 100,000 streams under your belt. They're looking at all of that kind of stuff. I could go on about playlisting and everything else, but just going back to kind of podcast, I wanted it to be a hub for musicians if they ask me that question right now, I just tag the link of Indie NL podcast to them. If they ask me any questions about the music industry, listen to that, listen to those 8 episodes that we've got out, and come back to me. If you got any questions, come back to me.
Yeah.
And we'll have a chat for sure. But I really want to set artists up, just give them that foundation, and let's see where you go after you got the foundation and where you stand as an artist, and what you want to do, and what the goals that you want to achieve. Maybe you don't want to be on radio. Maybe you want to go after sync licensing. Stephen Green, just got 2 songs placed on a Christmas movie, and it's going to be aired on CDTV. So he's addressing different avenues, different revenue streams of the business. You don't necessarily have to be on the radio. I know that's everybody's dream in the end. You want to be heard when someone's driving on the highway in Florida or in Ontario or in Newfoundland, whatever else. But I mean, there's so many different revenue streams, and we touch on a lot of that in the podcast as well.
It's great, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Your new album sure beats a good time. Your debut album is now available for everybody to go and listen to, and you got new music coming. Going to keep the machine working, so we got something to look forward to. So Justin, thanks again, man, for taking the time to talk with me and give a little bit of insight as to how you approach releasing your debut album.
You're very welcome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing it online. I've seen lots of your other stuff there, and you're doing a fabulous job. Keep it up.
Appreciate it, man. All right, take care. Oh man, it was great fun and to speak with Justin about his debut album, Sure Beats a Good Time. He's got such a great personality, so easygoing and so easy to talk to about everything music, and he's got a real love of every aspect of the music business. So Justin, thank you for your time, and thanks to Justin's publicist, Paula Danilevich at Hype Music, for setting this one up for us. Graham, thoughts on that one, takeaways?
I think he said a lot of really, really good stuff, especially for, new artists that they sort of need to start thinking about sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
First thing for me was he talks about the upfront investment of PR, right? So you just talked about Paula. She works for a PR company or owns the PR company. And, now he's getting in front of us, right? Guys in Ontario. And part of that upfront investment, also, he does touch on radio play, how getting your music out to radio costs money, but then it's going to more people, and it can reach a wider audience. And if your music fits the type of radio station that it is, that's just gravy for them. Another thing that he touched on was trust in the team that you build around you. So whether it's your PR guy or Clint, the producer, right? He talks about how he sent him one thing and it comes back and it's like just totally, mind blowing what the result was. If you trust your producer and you trust the team that you build around you, you're going to be able to, leave stuff to them and know that you're not having to micromanage stuff, and you can just still focus on the music, focus on kind of the fun part of being a musician. Luckily out there, they are able to have a release show, and it's like, oh yeah, 75 people, like that's a good release show.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, well, the band counts in that, the bartenders count in that, and then he brought in some other, some camera crew and stuff like that. So it's like that all counts to your total of 75 people in a venue. And now it goes down. I think he said there was something like 40 people that he was able to invite.
And just a sign of the times of that, obviously, right?
And then I want to leave off on one just beautiful quote that I really liked of Justin Fancy, and it was him saying, "You have to have a train coming behind you." And that was all basically when you're pitching music to radio stations and, and just anything really. It helps to have stuff coming behind you, like having followers on Instagram, interaction, engagement on Twitter, comments on your YouTube, because if the music directors at these radio stations see that you have an active following, they know that it's like, okay, people are connecting with this music, right? And then they know that if they put it on their radio station, website, anything, the people are going to connect with it there too. and really gonna, be good for both parties in that sense. So again, you have to have a train coming behind you.
Amen.
Justin Fancy.
And now, yeah, absolutely. And now more than ever, really, right? I mean, they've really got to see a lot of those online analytics and engagement, because it's just there's so much and so many artists out there at and for them to be playing your music on the radio, it's a big deal, right? I mean, it's all built around advertising, radio. So they need to make sure that they've got music playing on there that is going to bring in listeners, that's going to drive advertising. Lastly, just to finish off, Justin is currently a finalist for Country Music Video of the Year for Dropout Entertainment's Canadian Independent Music Video Awards for the title track of the album, Sure Beats a Good Time, starring Samantha Pico of Big Brother 7. So make sure you head to dropoutentertainment.com and give Justin your vote on that one. Other music news and something really cool happening in February is Screen by Screen, which is a new festival presented by Indie Week. And this is a festival happening February 16th to 20th. And this is emphasizing live streaming and gaming, AI, virtual reality, and tech in the music industry. Essentially, what's next for the music industry and, the digital side of the music business. How do other businesses and artists access this technology and generate income and monetization? This is essentially feeding off of the success Indie Week had back in November when they put their conference virtual for the obviously first time, as many places did. So they decided that, hey, let's follow this up and talk about something that is obviously incredibly relevant to the music industry at this time.
I'm really excited for that. I cannot wait to check out this Screen by Screen festival. I think that it's going to be good for a lot of people to learn from, and you're seeing like a lot of the big artists like kind of pivot and do live streaming and stuff. So it's really cool to see.
Totally. And Daryl Hers, the founder and organizer of Indie Week, is also working for CD Baby as well here in Canada. And CD Baby just released a really cool release strategy generator. And essentially they're saying, don't rush your new music to the world. Use our free release plan generator to map out your release and get a customized timeline so your new music reaches as many fans as possible. So this is really cool. You go to the website, you plug in what your release day is for your song, or planned release day is, and then they break it down for you, when you should be signing up for distribution, delivering it to platforms, creating Spotify pre-saves, claiming streaming profiles, pitching the music, setting up a smart link, and sharing your music. It's really cool. There's key dates at a glance, distribution setup, promo prep, all of these things that can help get you in the best shape possible for releasing your single. So if you go to release.cdbaby.com, you can find that there. And a couple more things just to round this out. Past release day guest, thank you so much for listening. Music video on January 8th for her song Wish You Well. And Graham, big news this week for the release day team.
Oh, it's huge news.
We have a Facebook page.
Yeah, we finally did it. We had Instagram and Twitter, and then now we finally have caught up with the times, and you can follow us on Facebook.
I don't know what took me so long. I don't know. There's things, because I was just telling you that whenever I post these videos now, I've gotten some notifications that I'm using, like they're blocking our videos because of content that is apparently somebody else's, but we use all stock footage or footage provided by the artist. So there are just some headaches from Facebook that I knew I was going to encounter that I didn't want to, but I said, forget it. Let's do it and get through them. So we have a Facebook page at Release Day Series, or just search Release Day Series on Facebook, and go smash that like or follow button and keep up to date with us on Facebook.
So after you've gone and checked out our Facebook, liked us over there, followed us over there, I know you're going to be checking out some new Canadian music. So Alex, I want to ask you, what have you been listening to this past week? What should the people go out and listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. Mono Whales just dropped a hot new track out with the old. It is fire. They're great. I love Mono Whales. I'm a big Mono Whales fan. And we featured a couple artists on our social media pages, including our brand new Facebook page. Adrian Sutherland on January 12th released his song Respect the Gift. And on October 9th, Emma Rush, it's a Hamilton musician, she released an album called Wake the Sigh, and it's a compilation of 19th century compositions from all female composers that she's playing on the classical guitar. So super cool album from her. So those are the tunes I've been bumping. Graham, what are you listening to?
I'll be honest, this week I went full hardcore and just so heavy and, you know, maybe a bit out there. So I was listening to Zune, which you were fortunate enough to interview on this show. I've been listening to his Bleached Waves EP.
So good.
Definitely not because I just got a Jazzmaster. Definitely not because I got the perfect guitar for making, you know, shoegaze style music. And that was released on June 16th, 2020. And then Intervals, their song 5-HTP. Oh my God. So heavy, released last year, September 25th, 2020. And again, we're going heavy. We're going hardcore with Protest the Hero, the song Gift Horse, which came out August 21st, 2020. Man, I can't believe that I was kind of napping on some of these, you know, tracks, because they'll knock your socks off.
Yeah, I just put on that Intervals tune that you're talking about just before we started chatting, and man, that's great. I've never really listened to that music, but that is something that I'm gonna go and put on and listen to this week. So thank you for introducing me to Intervals.
You're welcome. Your life is never going to be the same now.
So those are the songs we're listening to, and I received a couple press releases last week with a few new releases coming out, and a couple that stood out to me were Brave Land by Rain Hamilton, and she is a Winnipeg artist. She's a violinist, but man, her voice is absolutely incredible. This is a great song. It comes out January 22nd, and Ontario musician JP Sunga has released his song In My Bones. You can listen to that now, but he'll be releasing a music video to this on January 21st, and this is a really well-produced music video. It's a nice song as well, so keep an eye out for that music video, but if you'd like to go listen to that right now, you can. In My Bones by JP Sunga.
I'm really excited about those tracks, and if you want to stay up to date on all of the things that we're listening to, all the music that we're sharing, you can check us out over on Twitter and Instagram. Our Twitter handle is @ReleaseDaySRS, and our Instagram handle is @ReleaseDay_series. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, we now have a Facebook page, so you can follow us over there. You can just search for Release Day Series, and that's going to keep you up to date on all the things that we're checking out, all the songs that, you know, we're excited about, and you know, it'll tell you when we release this podcast, which, by the way, is every Wednesday.
And lastly, if you have enjoyed what you heard, it would be great if you could share the podcast, leave us a lovely 5-star rating where you can, along with a positive comment to help spread the word about these fantastic musicians. It would be a huge help in getting the word out. So that's it for episode 3 of the Release Day podcast. On the next episode, we have Jay Bocott of Calgary-based rock band Rooks. I'm Alex Huard.
I'm Graham Berry.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.